Good afternoon, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I'm on today to hopefully help some people figure some things out. And maybe I should do this kind of thing more. I don't know yet. I think it's something you guys should be doing on your own. It's the principal concept that we've all heard about before. You gotta forget everything you've known and go back and relearn everything. Go back and relearn everything, folks. Concise English and College Composition Handbook. We're gonna chill and just relax for a few minutes while the room gathers up. So please feel free to share. I'm going to pop my PayPal link up in the chat on Facebook so that those who wish to be generous and share some love can do so. I always appreciate it. Maybe I don't tell you guys enough. You see, when it comes down to our mistakes, our errors, the things that we're supposed to be paying attention to in our lives so that we can direct our lives, we have to make sure we know how to communicate, and that's part of the problem. We're not taught how to communicate. What in fact happens is we are told certain things to remember. And we remember them, but we're not taught in a proper sense how they're constructed to be concise. And so we're going to go over some of that today, and I hope y'all don't mind. Those of you that are familiar with me over the years, you know I do a little bit of writing my own. And that means, obviously, I've done a little bit of my own reading. And one of the things that I wish I could get back to was a little bit of Hamlet. So I've got some notes here. I'm going to Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. The green-eyed monster. Does anybody think about a $1 bill? Oops, I got to put that back. And that was, well, let me tell you, that was from way back in Act 3, Scene 3, line 165 to 167, Othello. I have done some reading. Where is it? There it is. And this is in the Hans P. Goof Concise English Handbook. And these two things are the things that I hope people will go out and get right away. If you really want to learn how to do this stuff, what you're doing in all of this language is you are creating your own liability. And I'm going to show you that. Hamlet as a thinker. According to Coleridge in 1818, Shakespeare meant to show the need for a healthy balance between observation and thought. What you see out there and then what you think about it. Between reality of the world of imagination. In Hamlet, this balance is disturbed. His thoughts and the images of his fancy are far more vivid than his actual perceptions. You see what happens? See, everybody's creating Hamlet stories when they write shit into that record. You're creating more vivid things than that are actually perceived. Hence, we see a great and almost enormous intellectual activity and a proportionate aversion to real action. He vacillates from sensibility and procrastinates from thought. In Smith. And when we speak about in Smith there, I refer to the smith that bloweth the coals of the fire. You're the ones that's writing that story. You're the smith. You're the ones blowing the coals into that fire. Hamlet as a thinker, it is he who are Hamlet. You are Hamlet. Quit being Hamlet. Quit making everything so glorious. Quit having all these fancy dreams. Get back to the simple reality that you're just a living soul, and that's all you need to be. You do not need to be a legal fiction. You do not need to be a literary fiction. And you do not need to be a complete abstract fiction. Whoever has become thoughtful and melancholy through his own mishaps or those of others, whoever has borne about with him the clouded brow of reflection and thought of himself too much in the sun, whose powers of action have been eaten up by thought. That's that one-eyed green monster again. They're eaten up by thoughts because they're your thoughts, and they're going right to the one-eyed green monster, and you're the one doing it. You're the one giving him that. You're the one that's liable. To whom the universe seems infinite and himself nothing. You have to realize you're not that person. That person is the no thing. It is nothing. And that's what their jurisdiction is. In rem, the thing. And it is no thing. So they have no jurisdiction. His ruling passion is to think, not to act. So when you guys see me get all passionate and everything, that's my ruling passion, is to think. And I want you guys to see that passion so you see how it affected me and how I now think about it. So what's the next one? The next one is the liability. And it goes to apt, liable, and prone. In informal speech and writing, apt, liable, and prone all appear in the sense of likely. So when you start writing this stupid shit down, it's likely you're stupid. I urge you to quit writing stupid shit down and prove that you are more intelligent than that and start questioning all of their stupid shit while you learn what is real. Are overused as synonyms for attitude, point of view, position, and procedure. Angle, approach, and slant are overused as synonyms for attitude, point of view, position, and procedure. I hope you learn how to change your approach, because their approach is known as an index. An index comes at the end of the book. They go to the end of the book to see what's written in there. If that information is in there, it applies. Quit putting shit in their book through the index. You don't belong in that book. That index, the Interstate Identification Index, Congressional Index, Financial Index, and it's all done with an index finger. My yea is my yea, my nay is my nay. And he told me to write these words are true and faithful. Now I will put my index finger to a pen, if need be. Otherwise, heed the words that are already written. Would you like me to sign? My sign is, again, a proper use of my index finger according to how I determine my actions. Under that index, we have words. Under these words, they discuss archaic and obsolete, colloquial, context and meaning, denotation and connotation, 1 USC 1, words denoting numbers, gender, and so forth. Dialects, directness. If you aren't direct in your language, then you are liable. It has to be direct from one point to the next. It can't be rerouted in falseness. It has to be direct, one after the other, in a succinct, concise order. If it is not, you are liable. Just in the language. I don't ever sign. I always use my index finger, put pen to paper, and I use block English, lowercase letters. Latin started out all uppercase. And it wasn't until English was brought in that they started mixing them. That was when they started mixing all of those 4 languages to create the English language, then they determined uppercase and lowercase. Otherwise, Latin was always in all uppercase. Euphemisms as opposed to directness, fancy and ornate, artistic languages, figurative, artistic, flowery, artistic, idiomatic, idolatry, inaccurate. None of it's accurate because it's all legal fiction. It can't be accurate. It has no curator that put the information out there as true and valid as a cultural work, an original work. It comes from a position of Mark Twain with no Samuel Clemens. And everybody believes they are Tom Sawyer, including Mark Twain, and not a one of them has a goddamn ounce of jurisdiction in that forum. Because it's all fiction. Jargon, neologism, non-standard. It is not standard. It is not what gives you standing. Your actions are what give you standing. Your hip is what gives you standing. And that has 2 bones at the back with 4 holes in each, and it's called the sacrum because it's got 4 holes, a holy bone. And it is sacred to mankind. Not only that we can stand, but this is what gives us our standing for motion. Our ankles then give us motion. We can go in all of the different planes. From lying flat to standing, to tilting, to moving from one vertical position on a plane to another vertical position on a plane. We can go into water. We can go into the air. We are amazing creatures. Learn how to use yourself. Learn how you are constructed. Concisely. Often misspelled. I do that quite a bit. I like to misspell things. I like to create my own symbols so they can't tell what it spells. Poetic. I've done some of my own poetry. Shop talk. I've done some shop talk too. Slang. Specific. I like being specific. It goes to species. Now we're talking scientific. You want to get on a scientific level? Then I'm going to move you to a spiritual level because I'm going to ask you if you're a man. How many people want to admit that you're a man? Hands up. Tell me a one in the comments. How many people want to admit that they're a man? Tell me. And I'm going to show you how you are liable. Just through your words. Genesis 2:7, wherein God created man of the dust of the ground and put him in a basket full of water to carry for 9 months. When that man was cast forth into this world, and God breathed that breath of life into his nostrils, then he became a living soul. Are you a man? Or are you a living soul? See, that's where the fiction starts. Everybody believing a different process and then being taught that process all their life. You got to stand up like a man. Well, that man in his standing is guided. He is directed by his spirit, not somebody else's. That's why you're liable. You keep giving up your spirit to somebody else to control. Okay, well, I'll do that. God, he gave me his spirit. Suppose I can control his body too? Bunch of little puppets. Synonyms and antonyms. The last one, trite. Trite. Trite is mere opinion. That entire record is nothing but mere opinion. History of the victor over a victim. And it's their opinion. Why don't we go back to the first opinion? The original opinion. The dark was on the face of the deep. Was. So let's not pay attention to that anymore, because we know the Spirit of God moves on the face of the water. Image and likeness. And so if you're made of 72, 78% water, and there's an image that moves on that face and gives you standing and moving, is that not the Spirit of God? Let's go back to the next one. That's your angle and approach. So it gives you standing so you're not liable to be another Hamlet or Tom Sawyer being told what to do by a Mark Twain that ain't got a goddamn daddy. And we'll sit there and profess to the same fucking Christianity. And yeah, I did say fucking Christianity. See, when it comes down to the original construction of the language, we talk about Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, and then Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer couldn't happen unless it came from Mark Twain. Mark Twain only came from Samuel Clemens, no one else. And Samuel Clemens could have wrote it as Samuel Clemens. But he decided to place an input in there, a directive, for everyone to direct their attention to. Hey, it was Mark Twain that wrote this. Mark Twain belongs to Samuel Clemens. Mark Twain is the literary fiction of the legal fiction. And Tom Sawyer is the abstract fiction of the literary fiction posed through the legal fiction known as Samuel Clemens, identified through the Spirit of God moving on his face. Subject and object form. So the state, when they talk about their Rule 12 and they talk about that subject matter jurisdiction, subject and object forms. If their subject doesn't directly relate to the object, then they don't have subject matter jurisdiction. And obviously they don't have territorial jurisdiction because they don't recognize the spiritual jurisdiction, you idiotic motherfucking Christians. Now tell me how much you're a Christian man that follows the Catholic religion. How much legion do you have with your spirit? Your living soul. Formal use of these forms differs to some extent from what we commonly hear in informal and non-standard speech. Choose the standard form when a pronoun is one of several subjects or objects in a clause. Pay attention to resident from now on and realize that the resident that you are claiming is a total fiction and relates to a total fiction under the guise of a literary fiction, posing to have some kind of legal authority with no legal name. Reference of pronouns. To make a pronoun stand for the right noun, place the right pronoun in the right position. Quit being Tom Sawyer's, Mark Twain's, and Samuel Clemens. Quit it. Quit it. Quit it. This is from the College Concise Composition Handbook. Parentheses and brackets. Parentheses, like dashes and commas, are used to enclose or set off parenthetic, explanatory, or supplementary material. Arbitrary rules indicating which marks to use cannot be laid down. But in general, commas are the weakest marks, dashes are stronger, and parentheses are strongest. So it's a matter of position where you place your language as supplemental explanations in the parenthetic phrases. Learn how to construct this stuff, people. I urge you. I urge you. Urge you. Urge you. It does not start with an interstate identification index, a financial index, a congressional index. It starts with your index finger. Finger it out. Finger it out. Isaiah 43, but now thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and he knew you as Jacob. King James Version, Isaiah 43, and he that formed thee, O Israel. He formed thee, Jacob, as O Israel. He called you Jacob and formed thee as O Israel, king. He called you Jacob and formed you as king. Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine. I am his object. You have no subject matter that pertains or is relative to me. Get it? The biblical scripture gives you answers to every question you will ever come up with. But you got to know the concise English, how it's constructed so you can see it. So you can read it and put it in its parenthetic explanatory statements. Because that's the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jeremiah 1 verse 5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou was cast from the womb. Created thee, O Jacob, and formed thee as, O Israel, in the womb. As a king, with the name Jacob. Act like that. Use that breath that makes you a living soul. Every breath is an act of God, and they don't have that subject matter. That subject matter comes from the scriptures. So if you're going to act, then act like God. That way when you learn how to write things down, you learn how to write them succinctly so you're not liable. You use his words in parentheses, rebutting their bullshit. So you can write all their shit down, shove it right down their throat, and then in parentheses, correlate it with the scripture that they're violating. Yep, and give them the law. I suggest everybody, well, of course, read the entire scriptures as much as possible, not just the King James Version of the Bible, but get into all the other apocryphal writings and everything. Get into the etymology, and don't let your etymology just go to the Hebrew origins and stuff. Get into the cave writings. That dispels all of their etymology, even in Hebrew. Okay? It lets us know that it still doesn't come down to a Hebrew language, which is a consortium of thoughts, a collective thoughts. But it actually really still only comes down to the one thought of the one man and how he observes everything and computes it here. That's the important part, is computing it here to see if it matches with this here. Not listening to everybody else's computations and letting that go as a direct message to here. That's an observation. You have to compute it here first. Don't let this be the pass through. This is the filter. It's supposed to be filtering shit, not just letting shit pass through. So again, think about this, and I urge people to read Isaiah 43, 44, 45, and Isaiah 22, 22. Isaiah 43, 44, and 45 in whole. And then Isaiah 22, verse 22. And then Isaiah 54 in whole. Yes, the living cornerstone. That's the beginning of the construction, folks. And if you're not constructing your word there, you've already lost. You've already become liable. You became a living soul, but in that living soul, you became liable because you changed to a standard. And no matter how it happened, it wasn't my fault either, folks. It wasn't my fault either. But when people start showing you there's a different standard, something that will help us all in a much greater facet in life, then it's your duty in that same capacity to do the same thing. Get off the couch. You are a vessel. You're his vessel. That's why I do it. Because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm still his vessel. That doesn't change anything about me. So remember, I love you. Have a good day.